All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome to our newest installment of the Detroit Hustle podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, and I am so proud to introduce this audience to the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Michigan, Mr. Garlin Gilchrist II. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Melinda, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So we're just going to get right into it. I know we have limited time today. And so I just wanted you to introduce yourself, where you grew up in the city and what schools you went to and just kind of how you got your start.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always good to be able to talk about Detroit, being from Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
born here in the city. My parents born and raised in the city as well. I was born on the west side, actually. I used to live over at Grandma and Schoolcraft, third house from the corner. But when I was 9 months old, my family moved to the east side over at Lafayette and McDougal. And so when I started school, just for people to get level set on that, that's right by King High School, Elmwood
Mm-hmm.
Cemetery over there. And so when I started school, I went to actually three schools in elementary school. I went to Chrysler
Okay.
Elementary School. I went to Fitzgerald Elementary School, actually for preschool and kindergarten, which is actually up northwest by where my grandma lives. And then the final school I went to in Detroit was Golightly Educational Center over off of 75.
Mm-hmm.
And I say final because my family actually moved to Farmington for me to finish school starting in the third grade. So I moved out to Farmington and then finished school in Farmington Public Schools.
Okay.
And it was interesting though, because my parents were very torn about leaving the city. And so it was really important to them to make sure that I maintained my relationship with the city. And so, obviously family, friends stayed there. And so I actually spent literally 6 days a week doing something in Detroit, whether it was church or basketball or DAPSEP or something, but I was doing an activity outside of school in the city almost every day of the week. So I felt like they helped me maintain my connection, which is very important to me as an adult, which I'll get to quickly later. And so
Mm-hmm.
after high school, I went to University of Michigan College of Engineering. I studied to be a computer engineer and a computer scientist. I was a double major. And that
Wow.
seed was
Okay.
planted by my grandma Doris, who was a 33-year middle school social studies teacher at Munger Middle School on the west side of
Mm-hmm.
Detroit. And she bought me my first computer when I was 5. So I was the first kid on the block to get a computer because grandma thought her baby needed to have a computer. I don't know why she thought that, if she saw a commercial or something, but she thought her baby needed to have a computer. And I fell in love with that thing. And my parents really let it be my own. I was like taking it apart and messing with stuff, putting it back together, and really had full freedom and control over it. And that taught me a really important lesson. It taught me that technology is mine to manage and to own. Technology doesn't run me, I run it. And that comfort and confidence I carried forward. And I think that's what laid the foundation for me to want to be an engineer. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful for programs like the Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program or DAPSEP for providing exposure opportunities for people like me to be able to see a car plant or to be able to see professional engineers who worked at an auto manufacturer, or to be able to visit a college campus for the first time, like I did when I visited Wayne State, University of Michigan, Michigan State, and even Michigan Tech, all the way up in Houghton, Michigan, in the UP.
Mm-hmm.
As a student, otherwise, like, when was I going to go to the Upper Peninsula? So
Right.
it was a really great experience. And so I went on to University of Michigan College of Engineering, had a great time in Michigan. I graduated in 2005 with honors. I then left the state actually to be a software engineer at Microsoft in Seattle, Washington, or the Seattle area. I was there for 4 years. And
Mm-hmm.
while I was there, I started a political blog. So I started writing about politics in 2005 in public, which was a rare thing at that point for, a young Black man to talk about politics on the internet. Blogging was nowhere near what it is now, coming on
Yeah.
16 years later. And that enabled me to build relationships with people who worked in politics as their profession. I'd
Mm-hmm.
never met anybody who did that. I didn't know any
Right.
politicians. I didn't know any people who worked for politicians. My mother worked for GM. My dad worked for the federal government. My parents had what I consider to be regular, normal jobs. But I learned that you could actually, help people realize their political power and get paid to do that. I did not know that was a path. But my website and people reading it and coming to it starting in 2005 helped me learn about that. And so that ultimately led to me actually volunteering for President Barack Obama's first presidential campaign in 2008.
Okay.
And one of the organizers in the office in downtown Seattle, which was 3 blocks away from my wife's apartment. My wife is from Southfield, by the way. And, but she had an apartment in downtown Seattle. The Obama office was right by her apartment. And so we both went in there volunteering. They gave us some phone numbers to call and stuff. And I had a conversation with one of the staff people, and he said, wait a minute, you work at Microsoft? Oh, you probably know how to do some stuff. And so they put me to work in a bigger role. And that ended up having me work on the campaign. And that was so inspiring that I actually ended up doing the crazy thing and quitting my good job at Microsoft after Obama became president. And my wife and I moved a month after we got married to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And I was in DC for 5 years, and I learned how to be a community organizer. I left software development to be a community organizer, helping people, run campaigns for social, economic, and racial justice all across the country, helping people fight for good jobs, healthcare, immigration reform, healthy food, everything in between for 5 years in Washington, D.C. And that was great. I learned a lot, but I had to come home. No, I missed home so bad. I felt guilty for leaving home. So in 2014, my wife and I moved back home with our twin babies. We were born on my birthday in 2013. We came home in Detroit, summer 2014. I started working for city government as a technocrat in the IT department, number 2 in the IT department, just kind of fix systems, being an engineer again. And it was great. And so that's what I was doing until 2017, people, after the election in 2016, when there were some election administration problems and people thought that I might be well equipped to solve those problems. And so I ended up running for Detroit City Clerk in 2017, unsuccessfully. I came close, but I wasn't successful. I was a newcomer to politics in terms of being a candidate. And I wasn't involved in politics in Detroit, so I didn't know anybody. I had to put in a lot of work, but thanks to God's grace, good luck, and a lot of support from people willing to take a chance on this crazy young guy who wanted to be a public servant, to help me to meet a lot of people. And one of the people I met during the course of that campaign was Governor Gretchen Whitmer. On Labor Day of 2017, I met her for the first time, and we ended up striking up a friendship that led to her asking me to be her running mate less than a year later. And now we're here.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I mean, you packed a lot in there. I have so many questions. But I just wanted to go back a bit and highlight that we've had quite a few guests that were in DAPSEP. So I love that you highlighted that. I think that's a common thread. We have a lot of
I was like Mr. DAPSEP. Okay. Like my mother was very active in the parent advisory committee before I was a DAPSEP student. When I started, DAPSEP only went down to the 7th grade. My first class was on Wayne State campus with Miss Champagne. It was an extracurricular math class. I still remember that to this day. So no, DAPSEP was very important to me. Some of my best friends in the world are people who I met in DAPSEP classes. Like I said, it was the first time I got a chance to go to see a college campus was because of DAPSEP. Like it was a really important program.
Right. That's awesome. And then I had to mention you went to Go Lightly. I went to Bates Academy, so we're kind of a little rival there.
I wasn't smart enough to get into Bates, apparently.
Oh, no.
My father trolls me about that to this day.
Does? Oh, my goodness. We have the Go Lightly, and then, oh, my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. What's the other one? Well, a few schools, because we did academic games and then we had bands.
I mean, I had a moment at Chrysler since we lived right around the corner from Chrysler. So that's one of them.
Yeah, that was a top one too. You're right. Okay, so I mean, you've encapsulated a lot, and I don't want to get too in the weeds because I know you get to talk about some of this stuff all the time, but I want to really get into the Detroit centric part because I don't know how much you get to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, you've gotten into your journey. I love that you said you got homesick, and I've had those moments, but I haven't because I'm in Florida, so I am far away, but I just can't do winter anymore. I just, I can't.
Well, can I tell you something about that? So, one thing, so there are Detroiters everywhere, like literally everywhere in the world. If you wear a Tigers hat
Yes.
You know, in
Yes.
an airport or someplace that you will never, ever be lonely.
That's
Same
true.
goes true for University of Michigan M for what it's
Mhm.
worth. And so when I moved to Seattle after college, the people who welcomed me to Seattle were people who were from Detroit. Like a guy, Bobby Moore, went to Michigan from the east side of Detroit.
Mhm.
Another guy, Cordell Stewart, again, another guy from the east side of Detroit, was at Michigan 5 years ahead of me. These are the people who made sure I was okay when I moved to the West Coast. And
Mhm.
then when I moved to Washington, D.C., we moved in August and my birthday's in September. And so my wife held a birthday party for me. So we had like 30 people at our place, and 25 or 26 of them were from Detroit or from the Detroit area.
Mhm.
So there's a Detroit community in every community, and that's really strong. And that's part of what motivated me in 2011. I
Mhm.
started something called Detroit Diaspora. And that
Okay.
was an organization that had two purposes. One was to help to connect Detroiters who were all over the world with one
Mhm.
another in their own community. And then the second purpose was to help all of those Detroiters who have this mutual, belonging to our city, to then help them find ways to be useful to the city that made them who they are. And this kind of underlying stealth thing was for me to convince people to come home.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to come home. And so ultimately I started that in 2011. I was able to come home with my family in 2014, but just wanted people to find a way to be useful, to be helpful. And I'm glad to see that effort inspired others across the country. It inspired Crane's Detroit Business to start the Detroit Homecoming
Mhm.
event
Mhm.
that they've been doing for a while now. So that is really important that we recognize that Detroit heart, that has spread all over the country and all over the world. And so we never have to be lonely.
That's true. And so this kind of segues into the next part where I want you to talk about what Detroit means to you, which you've touched on a bit, but I really want you to go a little deeper if you can. And like just in your experience, what makes the D so special to you and how it's made you who you are?
I mean, gosh, I'm such a, having lived on the West Coast and lived on the East Coast, it has just reinforced how much of a Detroit kid I am, how much of a Midwest kid I am. Seattle was cool. It's very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful place. Um, People are nice. I mean, like it's cool and everything, but it wasn't home. And while I appreciated some of the pace and professional opportunity that the East Coast offered to myself and my wife, um, I feel that this is the place that I needed to be, because I think it's important to contribute to the future of the place that made you who you are. I think that's really important. And when I think about why, or what's different about me because I'm from Detroit, that I think makes that is unique compared to people from other cities, I think it's one that we have this in Detroit. This, like, we have the depths of willingness to and ability to figure something out, the depths of
Mm-hmm.
creativity that spring eternal from the streets of this city are unique. And you've seen that in our city's historic impact on culture, on industry, um, on the fact that every story has a Detroit angle. I mean, like, I think
Yeah.
that the primacy of the Detroit experience, I think, speaks to why Detroiters are so able to adapt to any environment or any circumstance. And that's why Detroiters have gone to so many places and done so many things and been so successful, no matter what context they live in, no matter what pursuit that they're following through. Um, we're able to do that because we just have depths of creativity and inspiration that come from this place that may be difficult to articulate, but is absolutely easy to manifest. And I think we do it every single day.
That's a really great way of putting it. We've had so many wonderful renditions of that same message, but everybody has a little bit of a different flavor to it. And you just added to our gumbo, so to speak, in that response. So thank you for that.
Sure.
All right. And then before we get into the fun part, the game, I wanted to ask if there was anything particular that you're working on or that you wanted to bring attention to for the audience to look into or follow, that you just want to highlight right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Lieutenant Governor It's been really the honor of my career to be able to serve the entirety of the 10 million people who call the state of Michigan home. And, being a Detroiter is really important to why I'm in this position. The fact is that there hasn't been a person from Detroit in the position of Lieutenant Governor of Michigan in a really,
Really?
really long time. Like
Okay.
I don't think it's quite 100 years, but it's been a really long time. And there's never been a
Yeah.
Black person in this position.
Mhm.
Um, I'm the second youngest person to hold this position in our state's history. And so I'm trying to bring something different. And the way that that has manifested itself, I think most viscerally, has been in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, this pandemic that really hit the city of Detroit harder than almost any other city in the country.
Yeah.
And, I've been very public about the fact that I have had to say goodbye to many people in my life, family members, friends, colleagues. I've now said goodbye to 27 people from
Oh my.
COVID-19 since the pandemic first was discovered in Michigan on March the 10th of 2020.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I'm very proud of and is the way that Michigan, first of all, has the most diverse leadership team responding to this pandemic in the country. Gretchen Whitmer is only the second woman to be the governor of Michigan. Our chief medical executive, Dr. Joneya Khaldun, is a Black woman who was the former health director of the city of Detroit before we asked her to come serve in state government. And myself, a Black man from Detroit. So our team doesn't look like any other team in the country. And in part because of that, because of the insights and leadership of Dr. Khaldun, Michigan has been a leader in tracking how the COVID-19 virus has shown itself and has frankly ravaged communities of color in our state.
Mhm.
Thanks to Governor Whitmer's willingness to be a leader, she signed the executive order creating the Michigan Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Disparities that she asked me to be the chairperson of. And because of that work and the 26 people, some of the best minds in our state across faith, labor, epidemiology, public health, young professionals, young parents, community organizers, people under 21, like we have, tribal nations, Latino community, farm workers, health companies, health insurance, like we try to have it be all encompassing.
Sure.
But what we've seen is that given that we focused on this problem, the state of Michigan has been a national leader and a national model in making progress and flattening those racial disparities. So in March and April of 2020, this virus was killing Black folks at a rate of 5 times our white counterparts. Black people make up 13.6% of the population. We accounted for 41% of the deaths in March and April. Well, in October, November, and December of 2020, the last 3 months of the year, Black folks accounted for less than 9% of the people who passed away from COVID-19 deaths. And that's really in part because of the focus of the task force, the willingness to do things like distribute masks free to people, to encourage testing, to show people how to social distance, to provide infrastructure for testing for communities to whom testing was inaccessible, to everything from specific communication and education campaigns to connect people with health insurance or with doctors, because doctors aren't always present in Black communities, especially those that are fighting with persistent poverty, the rapid response grant programs, leveraging federal dollars to invest in everything from the distribution of personal protective equipment to educational support for students with special needs, and everything in between to contribute to those social determining factors that can lead to poor health outcomes overall, not just in this pandemic. So I'm really proud of that work, and it continues forward as we enter into this phase where we have a COVID-19 vaccine that is highly effective. We have 2 of them. One of them is produced in the state of Michigan, actually in Portage, Michigan, and Kalamazoo County. And wanting to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered and has the resources they need to make the choice to get vaccinated. Because the way that we will get to the other side of this pandemic is by our people getting vaccinated. Not just there being vaccine present, but people need to get vaccinated. So we started this Protect Michigan Commission that I'm co-chairing with several others to really, again, show people that there is a path for you to get your questions answered. It's okay to have questions. I understand a lot of people don't trust vaccines for a lot of different reasons. We have the answers, and we need people to get those answers so they can get vaccinated so we can all be safe and healthy and move forward.
Okay. Is there any contact information or social or website you want to share?
Michigan.gov/coronavirus is the really the center for all information related to the pandemic. and our response to it in the state of Michigan. You can get information about vaccines, about testing, about the actions that we've taken as a state government to keep people safe. All those questions can be answered there on that site.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that educational piece. I hope that people, heed that advice and check it out and get their questions answered.
Yeah.
And now we got the fun part. So we got a few minutes and I'm going to try to make this quick, but we call this the Fab Five. So you get that reference. You went to U of M.
The Fab Five reason I went to the University of Michigan. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely. It was one of the first, nonfiction books that I read voluntarily was Mitch Albom's book about the Fab Five.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
interesting.
Wow. Chris Webber, I was a ball player growing up. I played AAU ball from age 9 to 17. Growing up, Detroit Jam City was my team. We traveled nationally every year. I represented the state of Michigan. I modeled my game after Chris Webber. That was,
gotcha.
that was very, very important to my life.
Well, that's a great connection. So I picked the right title. All right. So I'm going to ask you about 5 Detroit things and what your favorites are. And we're going to start with your favorite Detroit place or landmark.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I'll talk about childhood and adult. Can I give you?
You can do that. Yeah.
So as a kid, I used to love the giant slide at Belle Isle, even though I have a terrible memory of, because the paint was always chipping on the giant slide. And so I have a terrible memory of like a paint chip going up one of my fingernails.
Oh no.
And it was one of the most painful things I ever experienced. I was there with my uncle and auntie. Anyway, but the giant slide as a child was something that was always amazing to me. And as an adult, it's actually really simple. I love the act of taking my children. My twins are 7 years old, and I have a 19-month-old daughter, and I love taking them to different parts across the city, just to let them run around and have fun. And now that it's winter time, although there's not any snow on the ground right now, I'm getting a chance to take them sledding and all that kind of stuff. So I just love the park and being outside with my kids. Now it's my favorite thing about the city.
That's awesome. Okay. So number 2 is now this one's a little tougher. Your favorite restaurant or dish, and it could be past or present. So it doesn't have to still exist. It could be something old that's gone, or it could be something now.
Okay. So coming up, the delicacy that was the seafood pizza at Pizzapopolis.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that was life affirming for me coming up. And now I'm just like simpler now, I guess. So like I live in Corktown. We got a great sandwich spot in Corktown called Mudgie's. All their sandwiches are amazing. The Barrett is their corned beef sandwich. The Stinson is they got this like turkey, bacon, chipotle mayo sandwich. It's amazing. So sandwiches from Mudgie's as an adult.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Anybody listening, go check them out. Number 3, your favorite downtown event. So events that only happen downtown.
So coming up, I was a kid. So my dad worked for the federal government at the federal building, the McNamara building that's at the corner of Cass in Michigan when I was growing up. And so he used to bring me to his office. So one, it's not an event, but I used to love riding a People Mover as a kid. I thought the coolest thing, going like Trappers Alley and all that stuff. That was so great. But from my dad's office window, we could see the Grand Prix. When the Grand Prix so the Grand Prix, for those who don't know, the Grand Prix is now in Belle Isle. The Grand Prix used to run through the streets of downtown Detroit. And so we could see the Grand Prix from my father's office, and it was just electrifying. It was so great. So that was my favorite downtown event as a child. As an adult, I'm going to cheat and give you 2.
Okay.
So one, because this is my children love it, the Pride Parade that happens every June in downtown Detroit. My kids just go absolutely bonkers for the Pride Parade. I've been able to participate in it for the past several years. It's been great. So the Pride Parade. And then my wife is a runner, so I like the Free Press Marathon. Yeah, we go support her. I put the kids on in the bike cart behind me, and we ride to see her at certain different points on the route. but it's great. So the free marathon.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. You gave me 2 answers. I like that. All right, so we've got 2 left. Number 4. Hopefully, this is not too tough. What's your favorite Detroit sports team?
Oh, the Pistons. I'm a basketball fan. Pistons.
No brainer,
No
right?
question.
What are you talking about? Yeah, a lot of people go back to their Bad Boys references.
No question.
We all
Yeah, I
remember
mean,
that.
the
Yeah.
Pistons. Period. I'm whether either when good or not as good. The
Hmm.
Pistons, and just to make a connection on what I was talking about, what I'm working on. So one of the co-chairs of the Protect Michigan Commission about vaccination against COVID-19 is Blake Griffin.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the co-chairs alongside me, and actually, if folks want to check it out on my Instagram, I did an Instagram live with him about the Protect Michigan Commission and COVID-19 a couple of weeks ago. So folks can check that out on my Instagram page.
And your Instagram is at
LTGOV Gilchrist.
okay.
LTGOVGILCHRIST.
Thank you so much. You guys heard that. Check that out. And then we're down to the last question. This went so quickly, but it was great. I really enjoyed all of your stories and just your journey. It's amazing what you've been able to do in such a short amount of time, relatively, in your lifespan. Very dynamic. But now I want you to tell me your favorite Detroit memory. And what I mean by that is a memory that you have that is so Detroit, you couldn't possibly classify it as anything else.
Huh. Okay. My most Detroit memory. I mean, it's probably my granddaddy. It's probably going to getting counties with my granddaddy. So my grandparents used to live off of 6 Mile and Meyer,
Mm-hmm.
and someone going to there was a county that was over at 6 and Schaefer that my granddad used to frequent, and so just going there with him and just he knew everybody there. I mean, he was like the mayor of that Coney Island, and so going there with him and just talking to people, and then they're playing cards and stuff. I think that's the one that's my Detroit memory.
That's awesome. And I can kind of see it in my own mind as you're describing it, just that camaraderie and that community feel and good food. That's a big part of what Detroit is known for. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. I'm sad, but I'm happy. I'm happy we got this done. I'm kind of sad that it's over, but thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, for contributing to my little old podcast. We really appreciate you being here, and hopefully in the future, we can get back with you as you continue in your path on politics. I know you're going to do some really great things after this, even though this is pretty great. And we just look forward to keeping up with you and seeing what you do next. So thank you so much. And
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. And I want to say that it's a beautiful thing to put your art, your contribution into the world. So I am proud that you are doing that and that you are representing for the city, for the state, for our people, and using your platform in this way. When I started my blog, I had no idea where it was going to take me. And so I know the same is true for your podcast. So just congratulations on that. I know it's a lot of work, but I hope it's fulfilling.
Thank you so much. It is, and you just made it so much more so, I should say. Have a great day. And everybody else, thank you for joining me today. Bye.